I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies. You may know that it's the world's most influential basketball podcast. And we're all getting monkeypox. Strap in. Andrew Quo, are you ready for the next pandemic? This one is the ape flu.
Wow, I'm ready to escape from this ape flu. They made a video game about this. It was like a precog, but for nerds and video games. Yeah, man, I'm ready to hunker down again and pod every day about the monkeypox.
Man, I am ready for the gorilla virus.
Like the worm flu. Oh, that sounds terrible. Oh my god, that like came out of my mouth and I was like, that is the worst sounding flu to
I don't
have.
like that. What about the chimp rash?
Oh, the primate pox.
Well, what this monkeypox does have going for it is that it sounds more terrifying than the novel coronavirus COVID-19. Bunch of nerd stuff over there. Bring me that monkeypox, and I will get people in hiding.
It sounds wild, right? Because it conjures up like all this Hollywood imagery of diseases that have been evolved through like the jungle, and but it's kind of harmless, and if you're vaxxed, you shouldn't get it. But a lot of people are not as vaxxed as much these days for their own reasons, and
but no one's vaxxed against smallpox unless you're quite old, right? I mean, that's at least my understanding. I could be wrong. I just thought smallpox inoculations were something that sort of ceased after like Gen X.
Yeah, because we got rid of them, right? And I don't know. And I'm not a doctor, but I believe you build antibodies if you had chickenpox at one point. But I read that these monkeypox snuck through because of maybe casual medical behaviors. It should not be.
What does that mean?
I don't know, to quote this, and I don't want to enrage you over some medical stuff that I don't know much about, but I heard.
Why would that get me mad?
We'll see. We'll find out soon. But it is because we had safely guarded against it, but practices, and this is what I read, that the trend towards shying away from certain vaccinations allows like little cracks to seep through, and it's not an issue, but like that's why we see the example of someone maybe in Massachusetts, which was unheard of before, but now it's like we kind of understand why that could have happened, and it seems to have happened.
I'm still trying to figure out why that would have made me mad, and that's enraging me. I'm furious by my inability to decipher why that would cause me such ire.
Hey, we had a lot of mass debates back in the day, man. That was wild times, man. That was some Matisse Thybulle stuff.
I'm still washing my wine bottles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I read some article. I forget the exact source. I was just going through my monkeypox news feed, and it felt like they were trying to blame like gay sex at raves. I'm like, really? We're just going immediately towards that. It was gay sex. That's how this is going around.
They should blame a topic we discussed on a classic Cookie Soups pod years ago about the poo raves. They should blame those at Berghain.
Still sounds like you're kink shaming.
Well, the Boston game was kind of a poop rave, but in a different way. Doesn't monkeypox sound like a delicious chocolatey snack?
You know, I'm thinking about the ancient curse, biblical, a pox on your house. Like, yeah, whatever. But someone's like, a monkeypox on your house. Like, yo, fuck you. How dare you? A monkeypox on my house? I hate this for us.
I invite you to my home, and you You delivered this monkeypox at my doorstep?
I think the reason monkeypox is so terrifying is that it almost sounds like a de-evolution. A devolution? Devolution? Or it's like you get this like this virus that comes from our genetic predecessors, our primitive ancestry, way back in the day shit. And it's like it's back in our genes. Like we've escaped the trees, the treetops, the jungles, and now the monkey is back. Also, it was like the plot to like a bunch of movies.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like a formerly rare Japanese treat that was like a cracker that was dipped in delicious. It could be like strawberry yogurt. It could be chocolate. Almond crumbles over the chocolate. Your Japanese friend would bring them back from Japan, but now you can find them in the East Village.
Yeah, that's the one. Mm-hmm. What are those Korean? I think they're Korean. The Korean eating video is called, where people just like eat a whole bunch of food.
Mukbang.
Yeah,
I watch a ton of those. It's not different than like Steve. Like you're a king who eats strange rations.
I have two masters. Steve 1989 and Steve Wallace. I have two Steves.
I thought you were gonna say "and God," but who's Steve?
No, the Steves. So what's it called?
Mukbang.
Is the sound of people eating part of this exercise? Because I hate it. I hate listening.
Like
to people
ASMR.
Is that part of this? Because it makes my skin crawl. I hate people crunching and eating snacks.
There's freaks out there, and I think that is a part of it. I like to watch it because it's fucking amazing to see like a young person be like, okay, I'm gonna try to eat 20 packets of ramen right now, and them just like cooking it, boiling the water, putting in the powder, making the noodles, and eating it in 20 minutes. It's kind of like amazing. I think there's a drama to it that is underrated, and it sounds crazy because it originated in Asia, and I think Americans think Asians are just very strange in general. I can say that because I'm Asian. Mm-hmm. But I think it is a really like dramatic reveal of a video. So I watch a ton of them, and there's some crazy food that they eat, man. Like I've never seen someone eat so much beef in like hot pot in my life. It's fucking awesome.
Well, that was my next question. Is it a volume game?
Oh, of course. Yeah, it is about volume. You can't do a mukbang video where you have like a tiny portion of pasta, like at the Kardashians' wedding. It's just a wee bit of pasta.
So maybe it's less about the atmospherics.
Yeah, there's sets.
It's got to be part of it, but it's also a spectacle.
Yeah,
You're seeing someone eat, like, take, I don't know, 6 minutes off their life by eating 20 hot dogs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're watching them die in real time. But this started with Kobayashi, right, at the Coney Island hot dog eating contest. And then it kind of turned into this. And we don't think we're weird watching that competition. There's been competitive eating in America for like 50 years, right? It used to be on TV when I grew up. I remember watching these guys eat like pickled peppers and watching like these very body positive grown men weeping and shoving these peppers into their faces. And this was before Hot Ones, right? So it's like there's a whole genre of food pain out there, man.
I just looked on YouTube. The Garbage Plate, an amazing amalgam 2 years ago. Technically, it may be a mukbang. It came up as being a mukbang. I just wanted to make sure we got our Garbage Plate mention in. But also, now I kind of approve.
But there's holes in that idea because any food item is a possibility to be a part of a mukbang video. It's not a noun, right? It's like a color. It's like I'm not a red. Maybe I could be. But yeah, of course a Garbage Plate could be in a mukbang video. Just eat 40 of them. That's what it is, right?
I don't know if you could
versus food,
tell.
all the same.
I don't know if you could hear it for some reason. Please Don't Touch My Raft started playing in my headphones while you were talking about the trash plate mukbangs.
Wow.
Really the best of all worlds. You know, I hope you guys couldn't hear that, but it was an odd experience as I was commanded not to touch any raft. Well, and I heeded it. I heeded it. It was as if it was told me by a Steve.
Yeah. Well, there's like a lot of versions of a mukbang video, like tasting. I'll try every item from Applebee's. Here you go. You know, like the Try Guys do that. I saw our boys Jesus and Mero do like every fish sandwich in the field, but they took little bites and there was a spit bucket, so it wasn't the same.
Yeah, so it's kind of like wine tasting.
It's having N beer 40 times.
But with wine tasting, you just kind of gargle and spit it out.
But that's what they did. That's not mukbang. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what the Mero did.
They got a mukbang.
Someone should make a mukbang.
If you're gonna eat 20 garbage plates, you can't be just spitting them into a bucket.
Yo, the amount of food some of these like skinny ass Asians eat is like. When I was young, I could eat a whole box of bucatini by myself. Now it's like maybe on a good day, half, maybe a third. But when I was like balling in high school, doing sports and being young, man, I could eat some food. And those are the people doing these mukbangs.
So, yeah, I've seen some of the competitive eater guys. There's this one guy who's like a competitive drinker, not alcohol. But like he'll just chug. He's a chugger, like a chugging king.
That's dangerous. What is he chugging?
I'd be like, all right, I'm going to put down this, 3 liter of Pepsi or something.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
He's tremendously overweight, as you may suspect.
Because water could kill you, right? There's always a story of like that one frat dude who dies of like water ingestion.
He's just so hydrated.
It's something happens on a cellular level that's like hard to reverse as soon as it's underway, and it just kills you. But it's very rare that it's like, don't do that. Don't drink like 3-4 gallons of water in 20 minutes.
It's something with electrolytes.
Yeah, it just sounds terrifying. And they're like, yeah, you come to the hospital and you're not dead, but we can't stop it from happening, you know. I don't know.
Well, this guy's drinking like, a huge thing of Dr. Pepper, which is clearly
totally
very
fine.
safe.
There's that Chinese guy who does the whirlpool drinking. Have you seen that? Where he has like 5 beers and he spins them all around to create like a flushing toilet effect, and he can drink like a beer in like a second. It's just like yeah.
Then what do you do for the rest of your night out?
Well, you keep on going, and then you try to get to one of these Balenciaga or Nike parties that happen. So first you whirlpool the beers, and then you try to see 21 Savage in Greenpoint.
A lot going on these days. I just wanted to go back to the portion size thing you were talking about for a second, because I saw you on Twitter, and you saw these little tiny bird's nest, hummingbird's nest sized pasta portions, and you approved.
Yeah.
And you've been on the record for for saying that sandwiches are too big. Now you're saying regular pasta servings are too big. And then I think there was a photo you put up showing these tiny little slices of pizza and saying they were proper.
Yeah.
Is this just short culture?
No.
Are you saying that beers should be served in a thimble?
How is this short culture?
Small
short people
culture.
can't be fat. I've seen a lot of body positive guys my height for sure. But all right, I think the greatest
a thimble of I don't know.
Well, I think,
A
for
thimble
example,
of lager
wine.
for you, perhaps a Rataburger served, in a
I love a
teacup?
half. I love a half beer. Sometimes bars will give you an 8-ounce cup of draft beer. That will be end beer for the night. But I've always advocated for half bottles of wine. I know like the fermentation is weird and nerds get weird, but typical wine bottles 3.5 glasses. If you're a lonely boy and you're watching Sally Rooney shows and listening to Phoebe Bridgers, maybe you don't want a whole bottle of wine because it doesn't really last if you're a nerd that long. So maybe like a half bottle would be nice. Like 1.5 glasses of wine seems like the correct amount, right? But they don't really sell
You're
those.
saying they should make bottles of wine for sale, or like restaurants or bars? Because some restaurants or bars will sell you a half bottle. Not tons of them, but some will.
For purchase to bring home. So I think like people should be able to bring home a few nice bottles of wine that aren't 3.5 glasses each. I mean, obviously it's a fine size, but I've thrown away a lot of wine in my life. It's a waste.
See, your whole agenda is just shrinking society down to your own size.
Well,
And
my
then
pizza.
what happens? Then what happens to us?
Well, then the pizza take is opposite because a typical slice pie of pizza is 8 slices, right? If you run that knife through twice as much, it would be 16 slices. So I think a typical slice joint has a reason to believe they might make more money if the slices are smaller, because one slice of pizza is never enough, but it's hard to commit to the second one if you're on your way to dinner. But 3 little slices, 1.5 slices in real life, you're going to make some money, I think, because I don't think half a slice is enough for anybody.
But slice pies are different than the ones that they send via delivery.
They shouldn't
Like
be,
slice
but they
pies
are.
are specifically larger at most places, at least.
Yeah, they're the large pie. And then when you get them delivered, they're meant to fit inside the box that they have, right? But
Yeah.
but I'm just talking like utility to go. When you get home, it doesn't matter. They don't even have to slice it for you. But for sale. So this is like kind of like a doing capitalist kind of thing. But I always want another slice when I get one slice, but I don't want to commit to a whole one. So I usually walk away unsatisfied.
Big Nick's on the Upper West Side, that closed, right? I think it did.
Maybe so.
I feel like it closed a year or so ago, maybe more. They used to have the biggest slices on earth, at least that I remember, and not outside of like novelty ones. They were
Near
enormous.
Columbia, right? Yeah, they were the size of a small pizza.
Yeah, it was basically like I don't know,
They
a home
closed?
plate.
That sucks. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It was. What is that size, man? It was like a small table, like
It was on. This is the spot that was on 71st Street.
yeah. It was a Instagram tradition to go there and take a slice of pizza next to your face.
That was like one of the first places I would go in New York when I was like super broke.
Did you have a slice?
I would go there like on a date. You must check this place out because I have
That's a fun
because I have $9 in my pocket.
And you can laugh about how ridiculous this pizza is, and you would never finish it, but secretly want to. Was it hard to eat? You would have to eat it like rolled up or with a knife and fork, de Blasio style.
It's just disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. You can fold it and do it, but those
I
are.
think you gotta go fold. You gotta tough it out. Whether that
then you're
means
like-
you have to use the two hand, closure method. That's fine, but you have to fold it.
I always am shocked when people get a slice and fold it the opposite. You fold it the long way, whatever. But people turn it over and fold it like the point touching the crust. I would do it. I'm no kink shaming. There's freaks everywhere. But I always look at that and be like, yo, do you go to Berghain at that special party where people poop and dance?
I was thinking about like half a slice and someone cutting it like the cross way and not the long way. Like, let me just grab I want to split this last slice? Cool. I'm just cutting it and like leaving someone like the crust with like a little bit of just taking the
Yeah.
bottom part of the triangle, giving someone a parallelogram or whatever that would be, a rhombus of crust.
Trapezoid. Yeah, I think in New Haven, there's some places that haphazardly cut their pies. They're not like straight per se, and in the middle, it's not like one point. So there's like little strange shapes of pizza in the middle that like are the size of like a silver dollar. You know, like it's really bizarre. I don't know why they do that, but is it that different than Balenciaga selling old shoes as new shoes?
What's that quote from Anna from Red Scare that like every man just wants to stop for lunch in New Haven?
Guilty as charged. Some banging pizza, man. That's some baller pizza. Well, how's that pizza? Pretty baller.
Takes the mic. Be cringe. Stop for lunch in New Haven.
All you young people out there, I have advice for you as you graduate this fine institution. Be cringe. Get the clam pie from New Haven, Connecticut whenever you can. Don't be afraid. But back to this portion size real quick. This was a viral photo that's going viral right now of the Kardashian wedding, where there's like this beautiful, it looks like Moroccan themed plate. It's like this beautiful, colorful plate, and they're spinning these tiny, basically a fork spin of, I don't know what
who's getting married in this clan?
Courtney.
Okay.
Wait, I gotta double check that because my Kardashian game is good, but not Travis Barker from Blink-182.
Okay. Got it. All right, I'm caught up. Continue.
Okay. So this is their third wedding. They got married at a small ceremony a few weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and then this is their third lavish one where like all the gowns came out. People look kind of incredible. Her bridal gown was like had this embroidery on it that kind of blew my mind. He looked crazy. I'm a huge Blink fan, so you know how I feel about him. He rules. But so the picture that's going viral is these beautiful plates with a tiny spin of pasta on it, and it doesn't look that fancy. In the picture, it's just like it looks like dried spaghetti with like a Rayo's type sauce. There's no like one leaf of basil. There's no sprinkling of cheese. It's just that, and people are mocking it because it seems like a comically small portion of food to have, especially pasta. And there's some body shaming involved. There's some vanity chatter. There's all these like undertones to this roasting. But within the context of this wedding where everyone's looking the best they can and all the foods are like handheld and bite-sized, of course the pasta portions are going to be bite-sized, right? If you want a full plate of pasta, get 7 of them.
So you're saying for those who it's more a pasta conservation, that they don't want pasta to go to waste. So if you want more pasta, just have more pasta.
I'm not even saying that. All the pasta might go at the end of the night. People might be like, Kim might be like, I want more pasta. Like, sorry, we're all out of pasta. I don't know how much pasta they made. I don't know how it's like the inventory on pasta is. But I'm saying like no one wants to walk around with a full plate of pasta, but apparently someone there wanted pasta. So like this is a good compromise. It's bite size. Give me another one. Give me another one. Film it and put it on YouTube. Give me 40 of them.
I guess my thing is I don't know the context to what you're saying is, are they going around as little appetizers? Are they going around like
That's
are people standing up and eating it with like a mini fork, or are they at their table and then it comes to your seat? Considering how nice the stoneware is, the earthenware, I would guess they are being presented to people seating, in which case maybe they're a little small.
Listen, I don't want to make this a class discussion, but the Kardashians have more money than a Theophilus London red stripe party. I don't think they're getting like paper boats of appetizers and then plates for dinner. I think they're getting like gold-plated everything everywhere.
Okay. I don't know why Theophilus just took strays.
I mean, when it comes to pasta portions, no one's safe.
The ideal portion, if you were cooking at home and you were not at a Kardashian wedding, I think you vaguely alluded to this. If it's for one, it's half a box of pasta. If it's for two, it's also half a box of pasta. If it's for 3, it's a full box, and it's a full box for anything upwards. That's my theory on it.
It's always a shameful moment when the second half starts and you're like, okay, I made half a box of pasta for myself. I'll save some for tomorrow. It'll sit fine. The noodles will get soft, whatever.
No, you
and
can't
it's
do
all
it.
gone. It's all
it
gone.
cannot be done. You cannot save half the pasta for tomorrow. It doesn't work. You have to only cook the half box and say, hey, that's still kind of pigging out. But you can't cook the full thing and be like, no, it's fine. I'll just make a whole basin, a sink's worth of pasta, and I'll have that for several days. No, you won't.
I've actually portioned them out and wrapped the so-called leftovers in plastic and put it in the back of my fridge, and with my grubby hands reached in back of that fridge 5 minutes later for that kind of still warm pasta, man. Every fucking time. I should be so lucky. It's a wonderful moment, man.
No, it's particularly mortifying when you do this. You divvy it out, you put it in the fridge.
Yep.
And
not my brightest moment, and I don't have many.
And I'm not saying you're going to eat it over the sink, but you're just sort of there, and then you just like open up, panic, and eat like half of the leftovers really quick, and then you're like, what just fucking happened?
It's not even a
minute.
panic. It's like
I was putting this away for tomorrow, and then just in like a like a passion of the pasta moment, you just tear into it and realize that your plans for a second meal are now gone, and you might as well eat the rest of it.
Dude, it's not even a panic. It's like this Sally Rooney slow moving, like, I know how pathetic it is. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. I just want that pasta, and I'm going to eat it. And I just, like, eat it quietly as Luka Doncic goes to the foul line.
Oh, see, I like the shameful attack on it, where you're getting out of the way.
It's like, oh, I got that dog in me. I'm going to dominate this pasta.
I definitely shouldn't be eating this, so if I eat it really fast,
no
one will notice.
No, I do the exact opposite. I'm like, 1 bite. Okay, 2 bites. Okay, 3 bites, and then it's all gone. I keep the plastic
torturous.
half on.
Oh,
Yeah.
torturous.
I just, like,
yeah,
peel
you
the
just want to
plastic
shovel it
halfway.
into your mouth,
Yeah.
shovel it into your mouth, and then feel bad about it immediately afterwards. Not in a gradient form.
Hey, man, different strokes, right? Like,
As long as you end up embarrassed.
yeah, shame, just so much shame, bloated tummy, and then like hungry 20 minutes later.
The only way to live.
Yeah, so I'm saying, right, like, maybe that's why people are upset at these pasta portion sizes, because I think Kylie posted it on her stories. So
They're not providing opportunity for shame.
Yeah, it is a bit of a humble brag, right? Like, oh my god, we're carb loading, and it's like, dude, I'll show you carb loading. Which everyone knows. Even no Kardashian is free from the shackles of brunting the weight of half a box of pasta.
That's the rule.
It's a human affliction.
The rule is, and as much as you cook, you're going to eat. So you might as well nip that in the bud.
So this happened to me last night, this exact thing, and I was texting you. I was like, "Yo, man, are we going to this Balenciaga party or not?" And I was like, "Well, there's the game. I wanna maybe have some dinner." I went through the whole pasta rigmarole.
The rigatoni marole.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say the pasta prevented me from going to this party, but I ended up not going to this party. It was a popping week in New York. It was a lot going on, I would say, and I don't really make it out as much anymore, and I had FOMO right and left, man.
I feel like you're in the streets. I see you out here, cousin.
I went out this week. Well, it was Art Week last week. We did Nada. Check out that free pod on iTunes and Spotify. And there's a lot of art to see. It's kind of like I like to look at paintings and pictures, whatever. And then this week there was Freeze, which was a scheduling snafu. I think that people were kind of annoyed at. It should have all happened at the same time. With all
what was the story with that? Because obviously we're talking about them occurring a week and a half apart, basically.
It's annoying.
It seems as if it just created this like half a month of art people doing art things.
Eric Adams fucking breakdancing in Gracie Mansion, just being like, the culture, swag is back forever.
That's my president.
Yeah, that's my comms. Oh, he's in charge of Democratic comms now. Kind of a genius move, but whatever.
So I see you mentioning swagoo here. Now, how is that different from swag? Oh, so it's kind of the same thing. Okay. Now, when you say swagger back, swaggerific, and every sentence and like finish it with just like a quick swag, swag, and then you do a little bee cooking dance. Got it.
The James Harden cooking dance. I think the issue with Freeze, and I'm sure we could find out, but I think it was venue and scheduling. I think that requires like a specific venue, and those venues are just tremendously expensive and complicated to book and insure and have unions working. So I think it just didn't line up correctly, and people were annoyed. And I know Freeze is like probably do the short man gesture to the other fairs, like Kevin Durant.
All right, that's funny. Yeah.
But I think going second was kind of not their ideal slot. You kind of want to go first because obviously, even if people try to save that pasta for the next day, they're eating it all at once. So people had seen and bought a lot of art a week and a half ago. I heard Freeze still went well, but you don't want to be the leftover pasta in that art fair fridge.
Never want to be that. So I feel like you have all these designers going off the calendar now. Mm-hmm. And then you have art stuff that's kind of scattered around. Mm-hmm. Feels like there's so much stuff going on, but in a somewhat untethered way.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here's the Balenciaga show. Oh, all right, sure.
Yep.
Here's Freeze. Here's Virgil, Louis Vuitton, Nike, Air Force One, like Party Plus, like gallery. There's just so much stuff going on that doesn't seem to be tied together other than just like the vague banner of culture. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a bad thing in the least. But as someone who only mildly pays attention to this stuff, sometimes I'm paying attention, sometimes I'm not. I kind of don't know what anything is. Like,
yeah.
Freeze is this week, and then the Virgil thing is tonight. Oh, with 21 Savage, and then Sunday that would be the 88 Palace for Balenciaga. Got it. And then there's a rave going on over here. It just feels like there's a lot of stuff happening in a way that makes New York feel very lively. Just walking around on, I want to say it was the Saturday. It was dripping hot. It was humid. It was gross. But walking through like the East Village, around like, I don't know, early evening, the sun was still out. It was about to set. It was absolutely like popping. There were so many people out just doing stuff. It felt nice.
Yeah, man.
It was cool.
Well, those people are mostly out for Garbage Plate Week, which happens around this time every year. Just like.
But Garbage Plate Week used to be. Lives, it used to coincide with Fashion Week.
Right.
Now it's Freeze and Garbage Plate Week, but But RX Nephew is performing here like in a couple weeks, so I don't know. Right. The whole Rochester monoculture thing that has taken New York by storm and grabbed Gotham by the throat and just whispers RX Pap lyrics into the collective ear of downstate New York.
I bumped into somebody who went.
Just get your own shit.
They went to like a Garbage Plate rave, and they said Isaiah Stewart was there. It was crazy. It's just like, I wish I was invited to that rave.
Yeah, it was catered by Wegmans.
Yeah, and you think it's joyous. You just said like, oh, it's great to see. I just see people's lives getting cut short tragically by 15, 9, 21 seconds.
Well, if you eat the hamburger Garbage Plate,
that's right. You're good to go. You're good to go. Just double the hamburgers and subtract one glizzy.
Spoken like someone who likes pasta served out of a golf tee.
But I wanted to go to this Balenciaga party, but I was kind of like, it's Sunday night. There was a game on. I couldn't find the sweet spot between my FOMO and my just exhaustion, right? Like, and I'm not exhausted because I went out a lot. I'm exhausted because I'm washed. And it was like Sunday's my time to like tuck into some TV. I like to check up on funny jokes on Twitter. I like to work a little bit late into the night. And
You
it
like
was
to troll Sixers fans into frothing rage.
which is crazy, which we'll get to later. But all I said was, don't give away Matisse Thybulle for nothing. Just don't give him away.
Look, good fans support their players. The best fans hate their players with just a psychotic, wrathful bitterness. The best fans really loathe and despise the award-winning players on the team that they follow and love.
Man, it's got spurred on because Matisse Thybulle makes second team All NBA, and I was like, "Yo, he kind of deserves it. He's awesome." And people, my Sixers friends, my imaginary Sixers friends on Twitter, are like, "You're an idiot. He sucks. He can't shoot." I'm like, "Well, this is a defensive award, so like, forget about his shooting." It's like, well, if he can't if he can't shoot, his defense doesn't matter. And it got to a point where I was like, "Yo, listen, like." He's not the best player in the world. He's basically free, but don't just give him away for nothing. He has a value, and everyone's just like, "Why don't you watch the games?" LOL, shaking my, it's like,
I jumped in there and got involved in your bullshit,
as you do.
and all I was saying was that if he shoots like 38%, whatever it is, on corner threes, then he should take those instead of turning them down.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even complimentary of him. I was saying that he was not challenging Miami's defense because he was unwilling to shoot. And people were like, "He stinks." They're like, should he shoot or not? You tell me. You're saying he can't shoot, but the numbers show he can, and I'm saying he should then. Anyway, it was all really boring.
I was telling you, like, you can't get into truths like that. It is a feelings discussion. It's like, do you even watch the games or not? So it doesn't matter. I was saying you were giving the conversation too much credit. Of course.
Whatever.
Of course. But
Look,
anyway.
Look, you're supposed to find the players on your team absolutely revolting. That's,
Right.
it's the way to be a fan.
Right. Don't get me started about RJ. But
Vilified for saying that the award-winning talent is in fact probably good.
I don't know. I like him. Anyway.
Bastard.
So
Anyway,
I was
moving along.
I was doing stuff like this last night of some sort, and I was thinking like I was too old to feel FOMO. I'm like, I'm too old to feel the fear of missing out, but I still do. And it's like, we talked weeks ago about the idea of NBA fandom being ratcheted up as a signal of a midlife crisis, and I'm all for that. I don't think a midlife crisis is a bad thing. I think it's like a natural thing that should not be ignored because you can make it better. No one likes to not be young anymore. But I'm too old to feel FOMO, man. And I saw people at the party.
I don't believe you.
No, I'm saying this is my discussion, right? Like, I look out my window with like Bart with the broken leg on Twitter, and it's like, "Yo, homie's here. Someone flew out from LA." I'm like, "Oh, I'd love to say hi to them. I haven't seen them in forever." It's like, I wish I was there. And I was like, my window's gone. My belly's full of pasta, and I'm on Twitter.
I mean, living in Brooklyn, calculus is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, do I want to come into the city on a Sunday night? Make an evening of it? Hard to say. But anyway, there was a lot of stuff going on. I thought that was sick. I did not go to the Virgil party either, even though it's
Ended up raining, right?
around North Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But that was because I was getting these buckets, and hoops come first, obviously.
Oh, I thought you were talking about buckets of pasta. Like, okay, you're getting those spaghetti buckets. Okay, done.
But that was the night when it was starting to get warm, so I came back so disgusting I couldn't even fathom. Like if I took a shower, it wasn't going to take. Like the problem that George had. Like, you take a shower and didn't take. Like I washed myself up, I'm still sweating.
Yeah.
absolutely impossible for me to be in a public setting in this state of affairs.
I was really excited that 21 was performing, and then it made me think about, like, when did he come out? Like 2014, 15? Is he like an old head rapper at this point?
The fact that A$AP Rocky, father of Rihanna's child and the creator of Please Don't Touch My Wrath, the wrath of God.
The Wrath of Meth. J-Ru. If you don't know.
The wrath of the math is that his first album came out 10 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
So 21 Savage is probably 8 years ago or something, right?
Yeah, it says on Discogs his first mixtape, Slaughter King, was 2015. That means he was like out and about at 2014. So like, yeah, eight or so years ago. It's a long time. I think of him as a new rapper, but he's not.
I have never seen him perform live. He does have at least a couple albums that I absolutely love, though.
I love that Metro Boomin one. Is that weird?
No, I think that's the best one.
No, good. Whew. But like, this album was kind of underrated, I thought. I don't know. I mean, which Metro Boomin one? Savage Mode 1 or Savage Mode 2?
Oh, I forget which is on which.
I think Savage Mode 1. I don't know. They're all great. I love how lazy he is and how weird and nerdy and dark it is. He's for me. Grind.
Savage Mode, the first one, was magnificent. Savage Mode 2 was good.
Yeah, I agree.
It's an album, and I Was were not ones that I specifically love, but I definitely listened to them.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys you have to have guests on your record, I think, still. He's on a short list of, like, well, is 21 on here? There was a 22 Savage at some point, and for a split second there was a 23. Are they up to, like, 40 now? And I just, like, fell off. Is there, like, 47 Savage?
Just more Savages?
One more Savage than the next.
The perfect 27 Savage. You know what's interesting about him is that he kind of had that trajectory where he came out and had this reputation of being like a really genuine street guy who was crazy, and that's like a typical thing.
Well, he was
that
dark,
happens.
right? Like goth.
But that happens with rappers, right? This guy, he's real. Like he's dangerous. Like, oh, he's gonna get shot before.
Oh yeah, he came out and it was kind of scary for sure.
Exactly. He had the cross tattooed between his eyes on his forehead. He's monotone, very sort of Prodigy from Mobb Deep-ish, like menace. And then he kind of improved a lot as a rapper and became sort of like this guy who we sort of thought of as like a guy who lives in LA and is like smart and thoughtful. And then there was a whole thing with them trying to deport him. And yeah, it was just, I have no commentary on that other than that he's kind of like a distinguished gentleman of murderous rap at this point.
Yeah, he dates up, like, he gets feelings for Amber Rose. Like, he comes across as dorkier than scary, right?
That's what I mean. He went from being like very, very like frightening as a brand to being like, oh yeah, I hope this guy doesn't get deported back to England.
Yeah.
I was like, he's British.
We found out he could ball a little bit. There's a picture of him like in a white tee, like driving to the hoop. I'm like, seems like someone I'd like to be friends with. I don't know.
I mean, he literally was spent his first 3 years in, no, I guess up until 7.
In Atlanta, right? No.
UK.
When did he move to Atlanta? When he was like a preteen?
It says 7 according to Wikipedia.
He's from Atlanta. That counts as Atlanta.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, look, in the 7th grade, 21 Savage was banned permanently from every school in DeKalb County for gun possession.
7th grade.
And then he went to a juvenile detention center.
That's real.
He was a mischievous lad, a little bloke who got into some scrapes, no doubt about it. But what I'm saying is he came out with that reputation and then was like, London? He's a chap?
But like,
he's dating celebrities and living in LA? It's just funny how the natural progression of like getting fame and money dissolves those like perceptions of you as being like scary. I'm like, no, he's awesome. Totally would hang out with that guy.
and the interesting thing is, I don't know about what his life was like in London, but I think we immediately think of like, oh, tea and crumpets and the Queen. Like, London's kind of tough as hell, man. Like, the poor parts in London are just like no joke. So I don't know where he's from in London, but it's just like, oh, he's British? He's an imposter. I'm like, well, he's not like... I only know of tea and crumpets. I didn't want to repeat it, but like, oh, he's not having a meat pie and watching like the English Premier Soccer League.
Is he eating pickled eels and wearing one of those hats?
Ooh, pickled eels.
He's not allowed to talk, and you can prod him with things.
Yeah. He's standing really still in uniform all day long. Even tourists can't shake him. I don't know. It's him being from London obviously makes him more interesting to me, but the authenticity of him took a hit a little bit.
But of course it shouldn't have, and it doesn't even make sense than it did, but it did. And it was funny, I remember one time Dame Dash went to Paris, and they got jumped, and like, I don't know if someone tried to take their Rockefeller chains or whatever.
Yeah.
But people like, jumped in Paris? Like,
yeah.
well,
Yeah.
like, you think the suburb guys out there aren't tough?
Yeah.
You think the American guys are heavily armed when they're rolling through Paris after going through customs? I mean, do you think they know where they're going? Do you think they're constantly outnumbered? I don't know. I just viewed it as like the idea that you were getting mocked because Parisians like jumped you. I was like, that sounds like a totally logical thing to have occur.
I feel like this story has been buried, but wasn't Kim Kardashian held hostage in Paris at gunpoint in her hotel room?
That was that
Paris
robbery
Week?
where they got like $1 million in jewelry or something, right? And she was literally there. Whether they had guns or not, they were told they had guns. I have no clue.
That was Paris Fashion Week, right?
I felt like she was.
Yeah.
I felt like she was like tied up or something.
Terrifying. And no one, I don't hear much about that. Sometimes Kanye will talk about it, but like, that is insane, man. I thought of about that yesterday because at the Balenciaga show, Kanye shows up again, crushing it in those boots. Like, this guy just seems, after the Donda 2 thing, he did out of jealousy, whatever motivated him, it didn't come across as well as Donda 1. And people were like, well, is this where we just get bored of him, right?
Well, that's because you had to buy his magic electronic 8-ball just to listen to it.
The Zune. Yeah, you had to buy a new contraption. But still, the buzz wasn't quite the same. It was too much on the heels of Donda 1, whatever. And he was he was feeling emotional, eating pasta. But he shows up to the Balenciaga show yesterday in Balenciaga in those huge comic book or cartoon boots. And I'm like, he's still got it, man. He's got the Midas touch. I don't know. You heard that story where he showed a picture of Kim. It's like, ever since we broke up, your style is whack. Yeah, your career's over. And then he sent her a picture of Marge Simpson.
I couldn't tell if that was, maybe that was post their breakup.
Yeah, he was trying to get some
and
digs.
people found the photo of her in like a pink Chanel dress or whatever it was that looked like Marge Simpson.
Your career's over. And I guess on the Kardashian show, they're talking about it and they're like, oh, that's mean. It's like, and then he sent a picture of Marge Simpson. It's like, oh, Kanye, we kind of miss him. He's the best. But did you see any of the looks from the show yesterday afternoon?
Yeah, I like them because I wear a lot of like plastic like masks that cover my full face.
Like zippers everywhere. For the pasta kind of gums up the zipper, but do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's tough to funnel ziti through like a gimp mouth, but I do what I can.
Yeah, that bucatine is a bit unwieldy for such a gimpy mouth.
Gimp or die, man.
Gimp or die trying. But like,
Be cringe.
be
Gimp
cringe.
or die trying.
Get Gimp or die trying. Big Gimpin. I thought the looks were cool. He's been into this stuff forever, and the explanation of it seemed a little bit like Taylor Swift's NYU graduation thing. Like, it felt like something he's been into forever. And we saw versions of that Taylor Swift speech for a while. Like, make mistakes. Go out there and make mistakes. I think Steve Jobs, Neil Gaiman. This is like a theme, and cringe is
Move
just
fast. Break things.
Yeah, right.
Ask forgiveness, not permission.
Right. Which is all great stuff. I think that's highly motivational for me. Like, I want to make mistakes with how
Gimp
much
or die
pasta.
trying, for example.
It's like, oh, I made a mistake cooking twice as much pasta as I need, but I'm going to embrace my mistake and eat it all. But, I think Demna was explaining it as like money as fetish, and the kinkiest fetish of them all is money. And I don't know. It sounds like he's been building up to this show anyway, and it's kind of cool. But doing it at the New York Stock Exchange was just like an awesome venue that no one's done before. So like you could just apply fetish to almost any venue that you can score.
Yeah, that seems to me how he approached the event, as like, all right, what'd be a sick place to do something?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the heart of capitalism. Okay, stock exchange. Yeah, fuck it. Like it's like right by Zuccotti Park. It's like the bull outside. All that stuff. Okay,
Works.
all right. Can we get him to do it? Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So how can we add that up? Like let's do like fetish stuff. Let's do gimp masks and put it on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I feel like that's how these things come to exist anyway, right? You're just merging. Okay, there's a location. There's a theme. Here's what the clothing looks like. Okay, let's just give them masks. Let's put on plastic masks on them. The actual clothes themselves may have had nothing to do with the concept of capitalism as fetishism whatsoever. But you add the masks and you have the conceit of here's the concept, and it becomes like more artistic. But this is why he does cool stuff, and this is why he's, kind of the most at the creative vanguard in a lot of ways within that industry, because he does this kind of shit. Says, hey,
it's him and Raph, and
having good ideas just goes a really long way.
oh god,
and then the ability to, have the muscle to execute it.
yeah.
If you were a nobody and said, let's do something at the New York Stock Exchange, they would just be like, nah. But he can pull it off.
Yeah, and I hate to be a Joel Embiid snitch about this, and we know people at Balenciaga. So the big rumor is next show, he's trying to do a runway presentation at the Cookies Hoops Classic, and the idea is touching glass is the kinkiest fetish of them all. It's crazy. Getting buckets is just the nastiest, freakiest you can be.
Here are some the Balenciaga after party scene report from our friend Bryn via Twitter. Felt like a teen club. VIP section looked as regular as the rest of the party. Chloe Sev, only celeb. I left early though. Caitlin Phillips looking like a hot skater in a hoodie, even though it was 90 degrees. Venue smelled like cat litter. So does that... Oh, and she said she looked like a prostitute from Grand Theft Auto.
So
would you say that helps your FOMO or hurts your FOMO, or how are you now?
this increases my FOMO because I would like to be standing in the corner with Bryn cracking jokes. Like, this sounds very funny. Like, I would like to have heard her say that to me and me be like, over my N beer. Like, that makes me miss it. I would have liked to have said hi to those people and smelled some cat litter.
You are a sucker for that.
I am.
The cordial greetings, the cat litter, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I wish I went, but whatever. There'll be more kinky basketball party things to do later.
Well, after we hunker down for the monkeypox plague.
I'm trying to... Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at, right? Like, we're just biding our time, seeing if monkeypox is really going to make us break out in legions everywhere, and then we have to decide, like, oh, all right, we're back inside. Time to soak the beans, show them who's boss, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And do a million think pieces about how we should leave our jobs, but what about the people who can't leave their jobs? And, if we have mental damage from the trauma, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Speaking of trauma, I know you're still stinging from the Celtics' loss.
Listen,
in Game 3 of their series against the Heat. I know
it's too early.
As a Celtics day one, that hurt.
Listen, there's a lot of games to be played. Half the Heat are hurt. I don't believe in that damn Heat culture, that Miami wave. I'm Celtics, baby. Make Boston Irish Catholic again. So let's do this. I believe in my guy Tatum.
I love what the Celtics are doing out there, but can we stop with the poopings and then the getting carried off the court, then coming back to standing ovations? Like, now it's happening like 3 times a game.
This is a combination.
Tatum poops pants, goes out, gets a fresh pair of briefs, comes back to a rousing applause. Marcus Smart does the same thing. Like, this whole pooping, disappearing, reappearing, standing ovation is just, at this point, it's a cliche. It's a trope.
As a Celtics day one, we're paying homage to the great Knick player Willis Reed, who showed us how to do this. So we're just mimicking his dramatic flair. Also, we're a big fan of that club Berghain in Germany, where people poop on the floor. We don't want to poop on the hardwood, but we will go in the back and shed some weight, as they say.
Just so much pooing, so much cheering. So that series is at 2-1. They play again tonight. So
I have a good feeling about my Celtics. I think they're gonna. Every time Tatum has a horrible game where he just breaks everything and turns the ball over more than he assists, he always has another good game. So this is right on time.
That has been a pattern. But yeah, it's hard to talk about that series with the game tonight because 2-2 is very different from 3-1. So we can just talk a little bit about what's happened so far.
Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed, and I just wanted to run this idea by you, is that there are guys who are instinctual, who sort of seem to feel the flow of the game and are making decisions and coming up with ideas and reacting to what the defense is doing sort of like in real time. Like they're fluid and adaptive players. And then you have guys kind of like Tatum, kind of like Embiid in some ways, who are, extremely mechanical, that they've learned these moves and they have the same trainer. So I don't think this is coincidental. They both have Drew Hanlon, as does Bradley Beal and a couple other guys. But
all of
they both seem sometimes like they're about to try a move. Like they get the ball and they're going to do this. They're going to do this move. And it's not quite as responsive, in terms of to what the defense is doing to them. It's sort of an idea. Okay, I think I should do a turnaround here, and let me execute the footwork to get that shot. And I don't know if this is because of the way they play or what, but I think it has something to do with neither of them really being excellent passers, and both of them being, in my opinion, susceptible to kind of asymmetrical defenses. Yeah. And I think we've seen that in both series against Miami. They've run multiple defenders. They've used zones. They've done things that make both of these guys, Tatum and Embiid, really prone to turnovers. Kind of keeping them at bay. And part of this is just being a good defense. But I don't know. Just seeing those two guys who are, two of the leading scorers in the league. They have the same trainer. They have some similarities in their game. And seeing the Heat be very effective going at them in kind of interesting ways, just sort of, I don't know, it seems to ring a bell.
I have a weird theory about this. I agree with this, and I want to talk about these two types of players. But do you ever play for Sega Genesis? I think it started Lakers versus Bulls, Bulls versus Trailblazers, whoever was in the finals. They Entertainment Arts put out this game, right? And the game was a lateral game, left to right. And if you were a player, you get to a spot. If you were David Robinson, you get to the key, the corner of the key, and then he does a signature move. Or you're Clyde Drexler, and the minute you get to a certain spot on the floor, you press a button and you do your signature move. You adapt that all the way up to all these amazing 2K games, all these video games that these guys play all the time. The one thing they haven't figured out about, I think, video game basketball is passing, because AI is not that sophisticated and players don't really move well off the ball in these games. It's very hard to figure out how to do that without assisting the team unnecessarily. So you're basically like, I call it like moving in a straight line. If you have the ball in this video game, you do something, you make a move towards the hoop, and to your point, like, you do your thing. And I think it has an influence on the way the game is played now, because like the language of these games kind of influence everything. And I think these guys have spent hours playing these games, and there's Drew Hanlon telling them to get to your spot, to have discipline, to wait and be patient, and then execute. And this involves a lot of shifting. This involves a lot of screening to get the right look for an Embiid or a Tatum. And a coach like Doc Rivers in the playoffs is like, Embiid, get to your spot and be great. That's kind of his message. But then there's a handful of players that are left in these playoffs, especially, that don't operate that way. And there's a certain different feel to it. I think Mina Kimes tweeted last night when she was watching the Warriors, being like, this is like a very fluid thing. And I forget her exact words, but it made me think of like the idea of water. Like Steph Curry, Draymond Green are players that kind of take the container of whatever defense gives to them. Klay Thompson is more of a straight line guy who needs to get to his spot. Jimmy Butler, even Kyle Lowry a little bit, are players that can adjust to the geometry of a defense or offense and kind of weave in and out of it, and manipulate it in ways like water finds every corner of a container. And I think like that contrast is so apparent in this Miami-Boston series.
Yeah, I think that's a good descriptor of saying water. Tatum and Brown are clearly good shot makers. They are both talented at making shots that are not great. They have a high degree of difficulty on their shots, but there's also a gift to not needing to make difficult shots, to figuring out ways to get easier shots. How can you get a layup instead of a contested mid-range jumper? Mm-hmm. How can you get to the foul line? How can you get an open three here? How can you get a teammate an open three? And I think what we've seen with the Celtics is that when you're a fairly streaky shooter and you rely on making tough shots, there are times when they just aren't going to drop. You're going against teams that are sending guys that make you uncomfortable. And we've seen this with both Embiid, and we saw it with Tatum, especially last game. Like, after a while of being like harried and harassed with guys coming from blind angles, everything's, as I said, asymmetrical. It's off rhythm. All of a sudden, you're just airballing like a 14-footer.
Right.
You're like, I'm just out of sorts. I can't get to that rhythm of how I play basketball. And I don't know if this is just theoretical or it's process-based or results-based, but I feel like there's guys who are really excellent passers can play like a half beat ahead of everyone else. Like there's a certain rhythm to playing. When, you bring the ball up the court, the guy comes to set you a high screen, you come off of it, and then there's that moment where you're kind of trying to figure out, like, are you going to try to lob to the roll man? Are you going to take a shot yourself? Or are you going to kick a pass to the opposite diagonal corner if the defenders left them open? And you see guys like Jokic and LeBron, Luka, like really exceptional passers, Harden as well. They make that pass, that decision, a half beat ahead of other guys. Mm-hmm. Because if you make it in the rhythm of the game and the pass goes there, typically the defense will be back and that person might get a shot off, but they might have to also attack the defender off the dribble. But those guys who just see the court and play by like a different rhythm, they just get the ball there faster. Like it's out of their hands quicker. The speed of the pass is different, and all of a sudden there's just an open look, and you see that there's a difference. I don't know. The half beat is the only way that I can really connect it from a musical tempo to a basketball tempo. But there is something that LaMelo can do it. Like those really advanced passers, they just play at a slightly different speed than other guys can.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a superstar, right? Like, even the Memphis Grizzlies, I think their two best players, John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., are straight line players. They're more like Tatum than anybody, but like their role players are of the people who can manipulate space in a different way, like Bane. And music, if people still listen to the music you're talking to, like, oh, you know what? Maybe another analogy would be like working in a kitchen, and a chef gets the wrong ticket, and all of a sudden they're a step behind, or they're off rhythm, in the weeds, whatever you want to call it, and they can like adapt to it. There's certain players like Luka who can do that thing. And at the trade deadline, when the Mavs got rid of Porzingis, I think they made a decision temporarily. This summer they'll do more things, but they said, we have a player who can adapt quicker, or as quick as anyone in the league. He can understand his teammates and defenders in a special way. So we're going to make our team a heliocentric model where everything revolves around him offensively. And, he has trouble on defense, but maybe we'll surround him with straight line offensive players and defenders and see how it goes. And Luka went off, right? Like, he was in his comfort zone. He got to freewheel everywhere, and he knew the rest of the guys were straight lines, and he knew where to find them. And last night, they, Bertans, Kleber, and my boy Reggie Bullock, ex-Knicks legend, were 0 for 14 from 3, and that's why they lost. But they had every chance to win that game last night, and I think the Mavs are what you're talking about, a great example of what you're talking about.
This idea of predictability,
right,
versus, I don't know, instability is interesting, because as a teammate and as a team, as a lineup, whatever, you want to know what the other guys in your team are going to do. You want to have a good idea, like an expectation of how they're going to play, and therefore you can build off of that with that kind of rhythm that we're discussing.
Right.
But if it's all rhythm, you got to be great at it.
Yeah.
And that's where having one, the quote heliocentric guy comes in. Because if you have one guy who is hyper advanced, then you can run a whole offense around them.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you have to have everybody just really clicking, like Princeton offense, backdoor cut, this, right, that. Like the rhythm is like boom, 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 right, boom, boom. Exactly. But you don't have to have that coordination or that amount of talent or that many, plus passers when you just have someone like a Luka.
And you have to counter, right? If the league is trying to identify Lukas and Jimmy Butlers, you got to get one of the you got to get one on your team.
Yeah, and it's weird because the numbers from last night's game against Golden State, I think they were like plus 19 with Luka off the court and minus 10 with him on it, or vice versa. It was something along those lines.
Yeah,
and that's just how things work.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that stuff happens.
There's no bad team left in the playoffs.
But I'm saying there's also something that if you can figure out how to guard that, one man monsoon of offense, then they may not have a second option. And we talked about this with Philly. When Embiid puts up 24 shots and is reluctant to sort of give the reins to the offense to someone else,
right,
whether that's James Harden or other players in the past, it makes you predictable. And I feel like predictability is like something you desperately want to avoid as, an offensive team.
Yeah, and when Jimmy Butler went down in Game 3 of his series, in the second half, we saw the kind of panic that the Heat kind of were showing us or feeling. And Spo's a great coach, and Bam finally turned into the player we always knew he was, even though he, in my opinion, he doesn't get the credit. But he's a great straight line player, and but we saw the lack, especially with Lowry not at 100%. We saw the lack of this. They couldn't execute what they wanted to execute, right? Like they couldn't rely on Jimmy to see wrinkles in defenses or mismatches on the fly. They had to orchestrate the offense in a more predictable way, and it ended up working for them because make or miss, hit shots, whatever. But
also Bam Adebayo just had a fantastic game.
I love him. I know I get grief for this IRL. I claim he's a top 20 player. I'm sticking to it. Even though his
I don't believe you, but respect.
I know, but like I think he's a wonderful defender, and he's fast and agile and super big, and sometimes he doesn't score a ton of points, but damn, he's one of the main characters on a number 1 seeded team.
Yeah, he's guys have different roles, but I don't think that he is in a particularly different class of player from Tatum.
They're around the same, I think.
Well, I also think that Bam can get underused on offense, and I think his passing has been a little bit forgotten.
Yeah.
That is a legit skill he has, especially in transition, and he doesn't really do it that much at this point.
He doesn't need to.
No, he doesn't need to. But I do not think they are tiers apart in terms of talent.
Well, hold on there. As a number 1 Tatum guy, I think Tatum should be compared to the likes of Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, all the greatest players of all time. So before you do that, I just want to make it clear that like there's LeBron and there's Jordan, and then there's Cousy and Tatum. So let's be real.
All right, we didn't talk about this last week. So they've come up with some new awards. There's one for the MVP of the Eastern Conference and one for the MVP of the Western Conference. I don't know if it's of the whole playoffs to that point or if it's
I think just the series, right?
The series, right. And then there's also one that I believe is a team award. I'm not even sure how that works. Just go to the team that wins the Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals. Maybe so.
Brad Stevens has the trophy for the team, the organizational victory in that situation.
So 4 new awards. One in the West is Magic Johnson Award. Another one in the West is the Oscar Robertson Award.
Understandable.
And they had 2 in the East.
So is it Dave the Butcher and Dominique
and
Wilkins?
Allen Iverson and the Aaron McKee Award.
Yeah.
Not Patrick Ewing, not John Starks, not PJ Brown,
not Walt Frazier.
No, they went with Larry Bird and Bob Cousy.
Weird.
Like they just did that and no one even really called it out, or did they call it out?
I mean, there was jokes.
Within the last month, we've seen the BMM just swivel from Robert Williams immediately to gift the Defensive Player of the Year to Smart, just because a Celtic had to win, and then create 2 awards based on Celtics. Just a dominating performance by the BMM. Like, props.
Props, right? Like, Larry Bird has to be the product of the best PR run of all time. Whoever is his publicist, whether it's the NBA house publicist or his own team, the legend of him is entirely... It's like... So at the time, it was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And they were both rookies at the same year. It felt fitting that those two should represent both sides of the NBA. But the NBA was in a weird spot where it wasn't necessarily making money. It was teetering a little bit. So they had to keep a certain fan base that looked a certain way. Respect. They picked Larry Bird for obvious reasons because they were scared of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And Larry Bird had a really good career. Is he better than Paul Pierce? I don't know. Is he better?
Sure. Sure. I mean, comparatively, sure. He won it. He won MVP. He was better, like comparatively. But also, what I'm saying is on a full scale of comparing him to the other stars over the last like 20 some years, like I don't see why you would name it Larry Bird unless it's just an excuse to create a parallel between him and Magic, which in my opinion there isn't one. Magic is just a lot better.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's manufactured, and they had to do that. Genius. We're sitting here because the people pulling the levers at the NBA did a decent job. And
no Wilt Chamberlain award?
No Dr. J?
But, okay, Oscar Robertson. Well, his peer was Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Maybe Wilt Chamberlain should get it, and not Bob Cousy?
No. Well, shout out to the BMM's relentlessness. Like, we've seen Republicans stick to an agenda for decades, and finally we're like, slowly they've gotten the work done, especially what's happening now in current events. It's like they've been at this for so long in loud and quiet ways while we were sleeping, right? That cliche. And not to compare a very serious fucked up thing to just basketball, but like I had not thought about Bob Cousy that much ever in my life. And all of a sudden, on ESPN, Mad Dog Russo, the legend, brings him up. Then JJ Redick's debating. A bunch of like white people are debating Bob Cousy, right? All of a sudden, it's like Bob Cousy versus JJ, and it just exists in our psyche. Why not name an award after him? Like I believe memes are alive. They're things that are living, like a plant or a human being. They have a life, and then for some reason they die, and no one can really explain it. But like the crying Jordan meme is dead. It's just no longer living. Somehow they resuscitated the legend of Bob Cousy, and he's got a beating heart like never before. It's impressive.
The guy retired in 1960. What are we doing?
I don't know what we're doing. I mean,
Thank you. I don't either.
I don't love the JJ Redick angle, this NPR angle of doing sports stuff. I think it could be more playful. I like Mad Dog Russo quite a bit, but JJ's right. Bob Cousy couldn't dribble with his left hand. He couldn't really, he did change the game, but the game, I mean, the plumbers thing is what really got people's goat, because it was like a hard hat thing. And it was like a ethical, moral, how you work thing, which we love as a country to talk about, how we work harder than anybody. And that was kind of offensive for JJ to say this. This guy with this handsome guy on TV with slick hair who went to Duke. What does he know about getting dirty like Bob Cousy? And I'm like, oh, God. This is not a conversation about basketball anymore. This is a conversation about getting old.
I just think we see in real time how the BMM creates legends and how it vaporizes those who stand in its way. Like, could be the Julius Erving Award. And it's like, nope, Julius Erving left out of this conversation.
Could have been the Charles Barkley Award.
It could have been the Charles Barkley Award. Yeah. But, I mean, Dr. J was in the league at the same time as these guys. He's a little bit older, but I mean, they won a championship. They went to 2 finals.
Isaiah Thomas sounds fine to me. First Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas would make a ton of sense. They also won a couple rings. Yeah. He was a guard.
Yeah.
It's just wild, like that. They are so effective at erasing the legacies of players who are on other teams and propping up their own. And again, we saw this in real time. They were like, Marcus Smart is getting this award. A Celtic is going to win this award no matter what. And they just pivoted with 3 weeks before voting, just pivoted away from the rim protector, shot blocker, rebounder to actually a modern choice for a modern league. It would be a versatile perimeter defender, in fact. Totally opposed to the guy we were just advocating for yesterday. And they made it work. Respect.
And as a Tatum day one, I'm at the end of the rainbow with me gold, with all the other leprechauns. And we do this constantly on Twitter. It's just like, pick one. Giannis, Embiid, or Tatum. It was like the Seidler of like polls, right? It's like pick any two good players. Even like who you got? Luka Doncic, Jimmy Butler. God, I'm forgetting all these players. Or Jason Tatum.
Or Grant Williams.
Right. But this like not for nothing. Like you start thinking about it, and this is all marketing. Like if we talked about RJ Barrett as an up and coming star enough, people will start believing that he's an up and coming star. It lines up, right? He was a top number 3 pick. He went to Duke like somebody else. I don't know why the New York media isn't doing this. It's because when the New York media sees RJ Barrett, they're like, he's not quite there. Let's be honest. We love him, but he's not that guy. Leprechauns are like, oh, he's that guy. Even when he has like 1 out of 4 games is a stinker. It's like, that's not the real Tatum. It's like, well, his half of the season he was bad. It's like, but we can't count that half of the season. I'm like, you guys are really good at this. I mean,
they're absolute masters.
yeah.
The real Celtics.
Well, anyway, enough about
are the ones who have won 6 quarters.
right.
Or whatever it is out of the first 3 games.
The shots
whatever it is. What is it that they've won 10 of 12 quarters or something like that? Right. I'm like, that's not how games work.
Right.
Like that, those are just arbitrary points during the game. Like it doesn't matter.
The shots that Tatum misses don't matter because sometimes he hits them. It's just very odd logic, and I love it. But let's talk about the Warriors, man. I love the Warriors. I know we fought about the Warriors for years. I know they're corny. I know the Durant thing did not help the legacy of any of these guys, even though that those were like kind of the most enjoyable playoff runs ever and tragic.
No, I thought the ones prior to that were so enjoyable, with the exception of like the Houston series, which was really
right
devastating for the haters,
but enjoyable for the culture. Because like I think when Durant joined the Warriors, that was the peak of NBA Twitter. Maybe the NBA was just on fire during those years, in my opinion. But the Warriors, do you have more faith in them after watching 3 dominating performances against them?
I do. I'm disappointed in the Mavericks, not in the way of like I feel disappointment towards their play, that I'm judging them. I feel disappointed that we didn't get a competitive series that I thought we would be able to get.
They had last night.
Like they've hung around for some of these games, but they just haven't shot well enough to win. And when they miss shots, Golden State gets out and runs. They haven't figured out ways to, consistently get stops. Like they're just kind of being outclassed. I know we can look at the shooting numbers and say, well, make or miss league, blah blah blah. If they make these,
but it's true.
It's a different series.
Totally
but I'm saying
true.
that can be true, but that's also like every team gets a certain number of shots,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And you look at them and you say, well, we missed ours and they made theirs. If we had just done something differently, like make ours, and they had just missed theirs, then we would have won. So
no, but that's a fair way to evaluate a game. I'm not saying Tatum should get credit for the shots he misses. I'm saying he just missed them, and that's why they lost. Like Reggie Bullock has been the same player this whole time. He just missed his shot, and like in a big way, he missed all of his shots yesterday. That's why they lost, right?
Yeah, no, I get that, and I totally understand the logical, appeal of it to say, well, look, Bertans went something like, he did dunk, but I'm thinking about the guys.
That dunk was so weird.
Yaman. But you had Bullock and another Kleber.
Kleber was shook.
Went a combined 0 of 15 from the floor.
14.
They didn't even make a shot beneath them or between them. 0 of 15. And of course we can look at that and say, well, that's a rarity, because on an average night they would each make a couple of those threes, and that gives us the difference in the game right there. And I get this logic, but there's always going to be those anomalies along both sides of the bell curve. Guys who were hot, guys who missed. Some days your team just misses, and you kind of have to account for that. Hey, okay, we just lost that game because this happened. But in the series, we've seen it happen kind of repeatedly. Mm-hmm. And you can say, sure, we just shot poorly. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But
I also think like when you watch these games that we've seen, Golden State has routinely gotten better looks.
So I think we're skipping a step here, and you're right. I think all this logic is correct, but it comes after trying to break down the matchups, the point, the in-game point of view, what Draymond Green is doing to give certain looks away and protect other looks. A healthy Draymond Green. All this stuff is like there's so many moving parts to what the Warriors do. We have to mention your boy Wiggins, like performing at a pretty perfect level for this team. He's filling in all the checking all the boxes he needs to, and then we can talk about like, well, these guys miss some open looks, and of course Draymond Green gives some players looks. He knows he cannot cover every inch of that defensive half of the court, but I think you're just moving ahead past the grind of the basketball nerd stuff into like a philosophical idea, or not
I agree.
a numbers
agree.
Philosophical idea. Yeah.
To me, the biggest story of this was, well, just kind of what you were saying. If you are taking a ton of threes mm-hmm. and you're making them at an okay clip, mm-hmm. let's say you're making 37% of them, 35%, right? Mm-hmm. And the other team is taking 2-pointers and they're making 50%. You are scoring the same value. You're getting the same return on your investment. Mm-hmm. But you're generating more rebounds mm-hmm. when you're missing those threes because they're worth more. So that's you're sacrificing field goal percentage there, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like against the Warriors, it was a real double whammy for the Mavs. They mm-hmm. took a lot of threes, they made very few of them, and then the Warriors would just get the rebound and it would just be off and running. Mm-hmm. And that to me was kind of like just sort of the story of this series so far, was that Dallas just couldn't really get stops. They were always on their heels. It felt like the Warriors were just kind of outmaneuvering them, being too skillful with the ball, too fast. It just felt like the Mavs couldn't really hang with them so far.
And I like them kind of hunting Kleber and Bertans on defense. You could see in the game like Draymond being like, I'm going to punish you for having these guys on defense. And assuming they hit their shots, they would negate some of the weaknesses they have defensively. Luka also not the best on-ball defender. But the Warriors, to your point, just punished the hell out of them by running and outletting these passes. I mean, Jordan Poole gets down the court pretty fast. I mean, obviously, the rest of the guys are famous for that. The Mavericks just got ran out of the building. I mean, it was a laugher at the end of all three, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I mean, it wasn't a laugher, but the Warriors were enjoying themselves at the end of these games.
I felt like game 2 was pretty competitive, but I don't know.
Can I just?
Other than part of game 2 when the Mavericks were up by like 20 in the first half.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It never felt late in the game as if they had this sorted out.
Yeah. And no one believed that lead. I mean, I know that's a feelings thing to say, but at that halftime, we're just like, the Mavs should win this, but like the Warriors have the right formula to come back. We didn't know they would come back and like go farther past them like that. Can I just say, like, I just looked up the 3-point attempts for all 3 games. Game 1, Dallas 48, Golden State 29. Game 2, 45-28. Game 3, 45-32. Dallas is hanging on with white knuckles, right? Like, I think they know the only way to stay with the Warriors is to shoot. And the Warriors know this too. So this is kind of like, I believe Jason Kidd after the game. I agree with him. He's like, this is just the beginning. I don't know what to say. We tried our best, but like, we'll be back. our guy is very young. We'll be back.
Well, they'll be back for Game 4.
Well, he said that. He was just like, we have one more game to play, and we're going to try to win that. But no team has ever come back from 0-3.
No, I'm not suggesting they have a
chance. I don't even think they should try to win. I think they should just like go through the motions a bit. Go home.
Why get hurt?
Exactly.
In a meaningless game.
I mean, it doesn't get more meaningless than the rest of these 4, kind of. I don't know. They could try to win 4 in a row. Let's do it.
I'm trying to look up Golden State's transition numbers here. This is the kind of research we do on the fly. I don't know.
But Clay, last week we were wondering what we would see. Clay still has some defensive dog in him. He looks good defensively.
Yeah. I don't really buy him as a defender. I know he had a couple moments. He also had like a couple blow-bys too. I don't know. I'm just not.
He's an on-ball guy.
Just not really a full believer in him.
Sure. He's doing a good job this series, though. I mean, Wiggins. So, in a larger view of the Warriors, I don't think it's ever a correct time to reward or make fun of the light years ahead thing, because the NBA is strange and the Warriors look good now. So I think the organization's like, see, but Wiggins worked out for them, and I did not foresee that, and a lot of people are getting burned for that. But like, Wiggins was a bad player. Of course, there was talent there always, but like with Thibodeau, he was not like, it did not look good for him necessarily. He's turned into a really helpful player. I don't know if he's a starting all-star caliber player, but he was, and he's very good. The craziest yam of the playoffs last night, probably. Can we talk about Bam's dunk for a second? That was a crazy dunk that was never replayed on that broadcast.
Are you talking about the two-handed one?
Yeah. That was
that was sick.
We were in a room with our buddies, and we were enjoying that dunk, and we never saw it again. I'm like, are they going to replay that or not?
Well, there's some precedent here.
I know. That's what I'm doing.
When Bam had a game-saving block against the Celtics in the bubble, that just got memory hold. Like, literally, when's the last time you saw it?
No. I had to look it up and looked it up again.
Tatum goes in, Bam meets him at the rim, ends the game.
Game 1 of their series in the bub.
Wasn't shown in any of the sizzle reels leading up to this.
Yeah.
I actually just have not seen it since it occurred.
Or Tatum 2 days ago fading away from 15 feet and just missing everything. Like,
well, you can't. But you can't show an air ball. That's not like a highlight. I mean, you could mention it. Shout out to the New York Times, though. When the Sopan Deb, they have like a BMM insider writing for the Times, the paper of record. Gray lady. Discussion of the game doesn't mention Jimmy Butler's injury in the second half until like 9-12 paragraphs deep, and the rest is how this almost storybook ending occurred for the Celtics. No mention of what Tatum put up.
Friend of the
literally
pod,
no mention.
Webb.
I was just like, it's okay if you're writing for the Boston Herald, the Harvard Bugle,
ESPN,
ESPN,
all of them.
The Tufts clarinet.
I had a feeling one of our interns was a leprechaun because he was like muttering in the middle of the night in his cage, like, "Where's me gold? Where's me gold?" And then when I shined the light on him, he was like, "I'm joking, man." I was like, "Fuck!" I was gonna have to let you go because our platform does not cultivate that culture.
Well, I found out that a family friend has been talking to an impressionable young mind and trying to advocate for being a Celtics fan.
Oh, no. Little nephew.
Yeah,
no.
we had to uncover who was trying to poison little RX nephew.
Wow.
Because he came to us one day and was like, "What's wrong with the Celtics?" And I was like, "Excuse me? Where'd you learn those words? Who's telling you this?" But we uncovered the source of this leprechaunery, these shamrocks, these shenanigans.
Did you see the story about
we brought him to heel.
Right. It's like, be a Knicks fan. He's like, "There's something wrong here." I'm like, "Oh, we're screwed." It's like, why would I root for these losers? Like, well, you have a point there, little man. Did you see that story about those Nazi adjacent? We're talking about Boston too much, but the Nazi adjacent keep Boston Irish Catholic group that's bubbling up more and more these days. And
No, but I watched the Phantom Cam zooming in on their crowd.
yeah, it's a city that is beautiful. The architecture's amazing. I like the northeast of America quite a bit, but culturally, it's not my favorite place.
Culturally, it is my favorite.
Wow.
Yeah, no, but yeah, like, too much Boston. Just before we go, I just want to talk about Golden State for a second, and that like they sort of cheated, right?
Nope. There's no cheating in this, but what do you mean?
They kind of cheated. Like enough for this title to have an asterisk if they do win it.
You sound like
they had the core of a dynasty, arguably the greatest team of all time, even before KD. They had those guys. Are they a little older? Yes. Long in the tooth? Yes. Coming off injuries? Yes. No doubt. But they had a core of 3 max players who were all going to the Hall of Fame. They added another max guy in Wiggins, and I don't mean that in like a complimentary that way. Like he's obviously not a max guy. I just mean
cap hit. What?
Economically, they are paying him like a max contract. Huge payroll here, just insane payroll. With again 3 Hall of Famers on the roster, and they just tanked for 2 years straight. Like just tanked, and were able to act as if they were a rebuilding team in asset collection mode, sloughing off guys like Alec Burks for multiple second rounders, hoarding draft picks, adding young talent, and then they get all these guys back. And I get it, but it's a little bit bullshit though.
Nah, no, it's all good. And you're a fan of the Sixers. Come on now, like.
But the Sixers were just bad. They didn't have 3 Hall of Famers on the roster.
So if Embiid gets, I don't want to wish this. I don't even want to bring this into the universe of chatter. But like, if Embiid maybe misses another season and they're horrible, and they get a top 5 pick, and then Embiid comes back, like whatever, man. That's not cheating. That's like how things just play out sometimes.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I am also just saying that like Curry missed a ton of time, and Draymond missed tons of games.
Yeah.
Like some of it was a little bit dubious. Like they were certainly tanking. Like,
oh yeah,
be
for
clear
sure.
about that,
but
right? Okay, as long as we're on the same page. I'm just like we've seen there's some precedents here.
They got a number 2 overall pick.
But I'm saying there's precedence. The Spurs had David Robinson and they tanked
smart
to get Tim Duncan.
Of course.
No doubt that occurred.
Yeah.
And I think you could also point at
the Mavs.
Miami with Dwayne Wade maybe did that 1 year or 2.
The Mavs with Luka did that.
Michael Beasley.
Right.
The Mavs didn't have a ton of talent, but they were tanking. I'm trying to distinguish between teams that had a real star, because Dirk was so old at that point. He was just a German sarcophagus, just a corpse, whatever.
But like
he could barely play.
Tanking is not
playing
like
him was tanking.
But tanking is not like a generational process. You can get it done in 1 year. This is my whole Knicks beef. We don't have to suffer that long. Like if you had a star, let's say you think RJ Barrett's a star and Obi's a star, whatever, and they're like, okay, let's lose every game next year. And there's some players in next year's draft that might change the course of any franchise. Let's just get them. It'll take a year, 12 months, whatever. We just came out of COVID, and it was like 2 years, and it didn't seem that long, whatever. Time is weird. I don't think what the Warriors did was like a scheme. It was just like, yo, our guys are hurt. We're not going to sniff a championship at all. We could squeak into the first round, and we're going to get demolished. It's like, well, should we get a good draft pick? I'm like, yeah. It's like in 12 months, 24 months later, they're back in the conference.
I don't think they did anything remotely unethical. I would have done the same things. I'm saying in some ways it just makes it, to me, a little less impressive.
Yo, that's how the NBA thinks about the Sixers. Like, right? Like, you know this. Like,
but the Sixers were just bad for a couple of years and got some high draft picks. I'm saying I can't think of a team that had 3 Hall of Famers on the team that just tanked and acted as if like they were just scooping up assets left and right for 2 years straight, and then came back and were like a contender again, like re-ups with draft picks and things they were able to scoop up, from being a bad team.
So smart. They should get an asterisk for being better.
I don't think it's immoral. I don't think it's. I think it's smart. It makes sense. I'm also looking at them as like, well, this is kind of some horse shit. I mean, you got your championship team back, but with just like a bunch of first rounders. I mean, granted, they didn't even get stuff from these guys. I'm more just marveling at like how well it worked out for them. I mean, they're not getting shit really from Kuminga or obviously not Wiseman at all. Like, it could have been so insane. Like, they could have had LaMelo. And like, if they'd had LaMelo, I think there would actually be more grievance. But like, Jordan Poole was kind of a product of exactly this process too. If they were contending, I don't know if Jordan Poole gets the minutes required to get to this point in his career. It's certainly possible. I don't think that's everything.
What would the asterisk be? Too many good players?
The asterisk is, this is some bullshit.
Too many. ... Too many good players.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, in like, it's worth like, I mean, to be honest, it's worth all the owners in the NBA deciding that the salary cap is bad for business, in my opinion. And maybe even the draft lottery as bad for parity, if they really wanted to get into the details. But I hear people talk about the Sixers like this all the time, and I just don't agree, Or now, like, people are noticing
the
more.
The people talking about the Sixers are clueless in this regard, because they were just like the Lakers or Phoenix or any other teams that had, a few years of being really bad and ended up with a handful of top picks. Like, the Sixers just did that for a couple of years. I'm only saying I can't necessarily think of a multi-year precedence for this. And look, if they play the Celtics, I'll root for Golden State. I'm content with that.
That's fucked up, because I'm a Celtics fan, and I thought you wanted good things to happen.
I know it's messed up.
Yeah.
But, as a Heat day one, I've got my agenda to fulfill right now.
Right. Someone posted...
I'm just saying, I can't think of any other example of a team that had 3 Hall of Famers, multi-championships, dynasty team, that just basically was like, and we're going to tack on 2 years of rebuilding and then come back and dynasty it up. Maybe there's someone I'm not thinking of. I just can't recall an example.
I think on paper that's what happened, but I would describe it a different way. We all saw them go down in the finals versus Toronto in like a kind of horrifying manner. 2 of their top 4 players went down with long-term injuries before our eyes. And I think like we danced on the Warriors' grave for like 2 years. And then when they were like plotting and planning and doing smart things, and things aligned, like Klay actually got back to playing, right? Steph Curry recovered, and he had a uneven season for him, but like he seems to be in his stride again. Draymond Green actually gets better. Like, a lot of good things had to go the Warriors' way. Wiseman did not go their way at all. Like, they tried their best. It could have been LaMelo, but like Wiseman was unable to step on the court this year. So, like, I can't really fault them for that, because I don't think any team would wish those injuries and KD leaving in that fashion ever. No team is like, oh, this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of a market. I think they're like, wait, how long is Klay going to be out? Wait, Curry just broke his hand? Like, people were dancing on that grave, right? Because there were feelings about KD still from him joining, and the asterisks they wanted to put on the Hamptons 5. So, like, we reveled in that for 2 years, and then now putting an asterisk on it, I'm like, all right, just say you don't like the Warriors.
Well, I don't like the Warriors.
Right.
But my point is not a moral one here. My point is like, well, shit. Like, I get why this worked. Like, even if we were dancing on their grave,
but they got lucky too, right?
No, they did get lucky, and dude, I would have done the same stuff. I mean, I probably would not have done the Wiggins trade because I don't believe in that.
You would not have drafted Wiseman, but yeah.
No, yeah. I would not have taken Wiseman, so whatever. But I just look at them like the Warriors are back. I'm like, yeah, they're back, and there are like a bunch of other new players. That's bullshit.
Well, that's some like fan stuff. Like every fan base has people I have trouble like relating to. So like yeah, in that regards, like Warriors fans emerging from their coffins, like that's not the most fun. But just on paper, what they did, I'm like, I'm weird. I'm happy for them. I love the way they play. That kind of basketball doesn't really exist on any other team, so I'm glad we get it. And they're influential as well. Like, I don't know. I think Draymond Green is cool.
Maybe what bothers me is that I like when dynasties rise and fall in the NBA.
Sure.
And they never really fell, right? They
farther.
never really fell. They just were like, all right, they're gone.
No, but this is the same dynasty.
But what I'm saying is right. But no, but this is what I'm saying, right? Like they seem to fall, right? And we're like, okay, they're gone, and even their loss to Toronto, would not have happened most likely if they had not suffered grievous injuries, and then they were just kind of gone. So it is the same dynasty, but I mean, it's like it almost irks me, not as much as KD going there because that was some real bullshit.
I love it.
But almost in that way, like. Yeah, it's the same dynasty team, except now we have a bunch of like picks and players and young dudes and stuff, and you're like,
good.
Wait a minute, where'd you get all this shit from? Like I thought we were waiting for your dynasty that won a bunch of championships to fall off, and now you're just like back in the dynasty role, but with a bunch of new stuff. I'm like, it's not like Durant, but there's like a similar sort of. Wait, this isn't very sporting. You guys are supposed to rise and fall like a regular ass dynasty.
I mean, but you're moralizing it, right? Like sporting. Well, I don't know what that means.
There's no morality here at all, other than like when I look at it from like a competitive standpoint. Like I want to see this dynasty be taken out. I'm like, but wait, where'd you get this Poole guy? Where did he come from? Where'd you get all these dudes?
I mean, the dynasty will end when Curry really declines. I think Curry's career is the dynasty here. None of this is possible without him. And I think we're still like the rise and fall. This is still the rise. Remember, there was chatter of a lot of people being like, can they win 4 or 5 or 6 championships if these guys stay together? And when Klay was re-signed, everyone's like, okay, we're in big trouble now, because what if Steph Curry wins as many championships as Jordan? And then already it was forming, being like, but he had better teammates, and Scottie Pippen doesn't count, and so Jordan did it alone, and Curry has help. We're already preparing for that. And then when that kind of crumbled, we were like, oh, not even close. And now that they look good again, we can't start always relitigating why they're good.
But Steph this Curry's is what it is. I'll tell you what it is. All the Warriors' whole shit has felt like cheap to me. It's just always felt cheap. Like all their shit.
Like Barkley.
And it's not
Barkley.
No, it has nothing to do with how they play whatsoever. Just how things have occurred to me just feels kind of cheap. Like when they came up and they became this awesome team, they never went through San Antonio, who was like, the prior dynasty. They never went through Lob City. They ended up going to like Memphis
went through Lob
and
City.
the Rockets.
You're putting Lob City up there as a
But I'm saying that Lob City was a contender in the West. They never went through either of them. They owned them in the regular season, but they never had to go through like a healthy Lob City. They never seemed to climb up in a way that to me was like satisfying as a fan.
They didn't have to beat the Knicks team I knew was in them. The real Knicks team.
But you know what I mean though? Like they came up and you're like, okay, they're the champs. And then the next year they came back, and then they lost to LeBron. And even their championship the first time, it was like they beat them. LeBron was the best player, and they didn't have Kevin Love and Kyrie. I just meant there was like, I think Golden State was probably the best team of all time, even before KD got there. But like the way things have occurred for them just have this like a little bit of flimsiness to them. They always have felt that way, like beating LeBron without the other two guys, then losing him the next year, then getting KD. Then like they collapse, and then now they're back with like all these other new young players and stuff. I don't know. They're just a little cheap to me. And it has nothing to do with how
talking point though, like on.
But it has nothing to do with the quality of their players. It has nothing to do with the quality of how good they are as a team. I've just been kind of intellectually unsatisfied by like the Warriors' rise and championships and how things have turned out for a team that was like so exciting and fun and has the greatest shooter of all time, a defensive genius in Dre that I love. Like, they've made me kind of root against them over the years because things have aligned in such a fortuitous way, in many cases.
Can I pose a personal question that I have a theory why you don't like this team? It is
Go ahead.
It's the symbol of the tech money influence in the NBA. Like, they are fueled by a city, a new arena, and their fan base. It is like the symbol of a part of our economy specifically. Does that have anything to, like, San Francisco as a city?
Well, I think if you go back and read what I wrote about them during their first championship run, I wrote something for the New Yorker about their series against Memphis. Was it called, was it The Sporting Life or whatever that section was called?
Rest in peace.
And at that point, I could be wrong, but I feel like I was a big fan of the team and of Curry, and I thought they were exciting. If I remember correctly, maybe I wasn't. I don't know, but I think my hostility to them really came from liking LeBron more than them and wanting LeBron to win a championship.
Right. But you also hate short guy like Steph Curry stuff, right? Like stolen
I think
valor.
it was the finals with LeBron and watching that first one and being like, this is bullshit. Like, LeBron's out there, clearly the best player on either team by just an enormous amount, and he's just out there with Mozgov trying to beat like this Warriors team. And
Cleveland should have done a better job.
That just made me turn against the Warriors, seeing them beat LeBron without Kyrie and Love. And then people are like, the champions. I'm like, well, this is trash.
I mean, I'm never going to wear a Warriors jersey or buy a Warriors jersey. But as, like, someone who kind of doesn't care about anything beyond my team, I'm like, the Warriors are fucking awesome. That team is not boring for a second. I mean, they had 2 dark years where it was like, they just didn't matter. They were the Knicks. They were alone in the food court. But no one counted them out, right? Everyone's like, they can come back strong. Everyone watch out. They're loaded with picks. And if these young-ish guys get healthy, like, we're fucked. And now we're fucked.
I mean, they're almost certainly going to get out of the West.
It's going to.
I mean, they're up 3-0.
Can I bring up a question to you about the
Yes.
East? One of our friends on Twitter was like, yo, New York guys, don't we hate the Heat? What happened to the rivalry between the Knicks and the Heat? You guys are rooting for the Heat this series? It's like shaking my head. And it made me think, and I responded in a way, but I wanted to hear your take on it first. Like, do you think we should... That rivalry was crazy in the 90s, right? Hardaway, Allen Houston shot, Alonzo Mourning versus Ewing. Like, there were battles. The brawl with P.J. Brown and Charlie Ward. Do you think the NBA culture has changed in a way that makes all of that old-fashioned?
Well, I also would say that rivalry was really unique in those moments. Van Gundy around Alonzo Mourning's leg, and
Love it.
Charlie Ward and PJ Brown and all those people getting into it. LJ and Mourning.
The NBA suspending Knicks players for taking one step off the bench. Talk about soft. Like,
Right,
that was
I mean,
a 90s
all those
rule.
Right, there was all that stuff. But I also feel like you've also had Knicks Pistons and Knicks Bulls and Knicks, Celtics and Knicks Sixers or whatever. I just mean, there were a lot of rivalries around then.
But it was a Riley thing, I think.
No, you had Riley. That was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And, of course, they were rivals. I just feel like, ultimately, the Heat were one of many, and they're an expansion team. It just doesn't have that same history that goes back, like, in your blood, that by default, you root against them.
That's fair.
If you were a Celtics fan, you, by default, root against Philly. That's just how it works, and vice versa.
Right.
Like, you see some people who are like Knicks fans or other fans being like, yeah, I kind of like the Celtics team. You don't really see that from Sixers fans. I mean, they're focused on hating Matisse Thybulle. But overall, I don't see Sixers fans, saying, weirdly, I'm rooting for the Celtics here. It's just kind of like not doable.
Yeah.
I just don't think the Miami has that kind of 50-year history where your dad was like, I hate the goddamn Heat.
Well,
now that might have happened at this point.
Yeah.
But we're talking about people who didn't grow up like that.
Yeah. I mean, we're old enough by the mid 90s when the Heat were excellent and the Knicks were awesome. And those battles were so intense to the point in 99 when Allen Houston hits that Game 7 shot to beat the Heat. It felt like we had won a championship because I hated the Heat that much. Fast forward a zillion years, like our friends aren't even born yet, and we're here. And through all the things in my life, I stopped caring about like a certain kind of tribalism there. I don't really hate any team. And I was trying to think about why, if I had to explain why I gave up my dislike for the Heat, I would say Alonzo Mourning got sick. And that was really scary and sad because he was in his kind of late end of his prime. And it was one of those moments where I have to be a JJ Redick-ass thinker about it and be like, life is bigger than just this entertainment. And then you have the whole era of gambling and fantasy and NBA Twitter where like you kind of level the field of a fandom. And then LeBron goes there, the ultimate mercenary. And those teams were like, to your point, like I was rooting for those teams. Like I love the idea of player empowerment, and people who are anti-LeBron going to the Heat were my enemies. Those were my enemies. And then,
I think you nailed upon it though. Also, was that the Knicks were never, other than that maybe that one year when Carmelo got a couple MVP votes, they were never rivals to LeBron and the Heatles.
No,
they were too bad. And if there was, vestigial ire, vitriol towards the Heat, it's from like 25 years ago, and the Knicks have just sucked since then for the most part. They've had a couple okay years in the mix, but
hate is taught. We know this, right? But I don't think people of my generation teach younger people that the Heat are whack. We're just like, to your point, like, well, we can't really argue because the Knicks haven't really done anything for 20 years.
But I mean, you saw the people from like Side Talk New York or whatever it's called. Like they were fired up about beating the Celtics on opening night. I think the Celtics
that was fun.
Have a cachet that the Knicks don't. That the Heat don't. I still think that.
Oh, I agree, but that's different. And this is tough for me to talk about as an Irish Catholic fan of the Boston Celtics and Jason Tatum because I want him to get so much better, and everyone underestimates him. It's sad, but the Boston New York thing has been a rivalry with the Yankees and Red Sox, and like this is it's bigger than the NBA, I believe. That's a Boston.
It's totally New York versus Boston Babe Ruth shit. That's why.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why I show up wearing my Roger Maris authentic. You're over there in your Yogi Berra throwback.
When I'm up really early on Sunday mornings and I see all these young people in like Lou Gehrig jerseys and like holding bags of other clothes with them, I'm like, good for you. Young people, do your damn thing.
Making your walk of shame home
like a champion.
Morning in your Phil Rizzuto.
Your Phil Necro authentic Mitchell and Ness. Away jersey, like the gray, thick polyester jersey. Mattingly, baby.
That's a Mattingly.
Yeah. Ricky Henderson this morning.
Rolling out of bed, thrown on the Winfield, getting back on the G train.
I got my Thurman Munson on, if you know what I'm saying. Willie Randolph in the building.
18 again in my Thurman Munson.
That's the life I'm missing, man.
Is that a Steve Sachs?
Wow. Is that a Raphael Mike Paleorulo? Wow, you had quite a night.
Pags.
Dave Rigetti. Hey. That's some freaking. That's what Balenciaga should do next. Just throw back the Yankees jerseys. That's Gimp.
I love cookies. Gimp died trying.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.